Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. We continue reading from the 40 principles of the religion, the 40 fundamentals of the religion, the Arba'in fi Usul Din, by Imam Al-Ghazali, rahimahullah. Wa nafa'ana bihim fi ad-darain. And we have just arrived at the 10th principle, which is practically the 40th, completing these 40 principles with a chapter on remembering death, fi dhikri al-maut, which is very appropriate, and it's the same with the ihya. Know that 9 stations we have mentioned are not on a single level. The nine stations within the last quarter. Rather, some of them are sought after in and of themselves, like love and contentment. For indeed, both of them are at the highest level. And some of them are sought after for something else, like repentance, asceticism, fear, and patience. Repentance is returning from the path of remoteness to face the path of nearness. Asceticism is abandoning all that distracts from closeness to Allah. Fear is a whip that drives the slave to abandoning all distractions. And patience is a struggle with those desires that cut one off from the path of nearness. None of that is sought in itself. Rather, what is sought after is nearness, and that is through knowledge and love. For it is sought after in itself, not for something else. Nearness is not completely attained except by cutting off love of anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the heart. And in fact, I would like to highlight the word that Imam Al-Ghazali used, of course, in Arabic, for struggle here, is the word jihad. And I deliberately mention the Arabic word because of all the stereotyped images and wrong information there is in the Quran and the words that pertain to jihad, and there are words that pertain to qital, and these are two. It's almost like a Venn diagram. I think that's the most appropriate thing to say. A Venn diagram where there is an area that is common between them, where they intersect. But there is jihad that is not qital, it's not fighting. It's not fighting, literally. And there is fighting that is not jihad, when it crosses boundaries, when it crosses red lines, Islamic red lines. So nearness is not completely attained except by cutting off love of anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the heart. It requires fear, patience, and abstinence for that reason. Among the most immensely beneficial affairs is remembering death. When I said that it is really most appropriate that he concluded the very last book, here the very last chapter, the very last principle, if you will, with remembering death, because the end of this of this life, the very last thing. There is something beyond, of course. We believe in the hereafter. And Imam Ghazali, in this chapter, he mentions many things. He mentions the hereafter, he mentions punishment, because we are held responsible. Among the most immediately beneficial affairs, remembering death. For this reason, we have come to it here, and Revelation has emphasized the reward for remembering it. Through it, love of the world is spoiled, and the heart's attachment to it is cut off. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم. Say verily, the death that you are fleeing from will most certainly meet you. So usually, if you are fleeing something, it's behind you, following you on your tracks, and following your footsteps. But here it says, it will meet you, it will face you, it will. So you run away from it, and it's waiting. It's in front of you. You cannot run away from it. The Prophet ﷺ said, frequently remember the destroyer of pleasures. أكثروا من ذكر هادم. If it's Hadim, that's destroyer. If it's Hazim, then it's basically it wins over, but as a result of war, fighting with these pleasures. Mentioning death, really. Yeah. It is death. He also said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is here, hadith narrated by Al-Bukhari and Muslim. Whoever hates to meet Allah, Allah hates to meet him. من كره لقاء الله كره الله لقاءه. Aisha radiallahu anha said, O Allah's Messenger, will anyone be resurrected with the martyrs? He said, yes, whoever remembers death 20 times in the day and the night. It's not really a hadith, meaning that it doesn't have even a weak chain of narrators. And there are a couple of a few problematic chains of narrators in what follows. The Prophet ﷺ walked past a gathering in which people were laughing loudly. Allah's Messenger said, ﷺ, mix your gathering with the remembrance of the spoiler of pleasures. They said, it was asked, what is that? He said, death. It's not, again, it's not a hadith. And the next one is a weak tradition. The Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, if the animals knew about death, what the son of Adam knows, you would not have eaten a fat animal from among them. First of all, it's not. It's a weak tradition. And the idea is that their knowledge of death will keep them thin. He also ﷺ, said, death suffices as an admonition. And he said, the next hadith doesn't have an origin really. It's not a hadith. He ﷺ said, I have left you two admonishers among you. One of them is silent and one of them speaks. The silent one is death. The one that speaks is the Quran. And the next hadith is weak. Once a man was mentioned in his presence, ﷺ, and spoken well of. So he said, how was your companion's remembrance of death? They said, we hardly heard him mention death. He said, then your companion is certainly not well. Once a man from the helpers said, the helpers really, it's really the way it translates the Ansar. These are the indigenous people of Medina who rendered help, support, just name it, to the Muslim migrants from Mecca. Their story is an amazing story. So once one of those Ansar said, O Allah's Messenger, who is the smartest people and the noblest people? So he said, the one who remembers death the most and the one most earnest in preparing for it. These are the smartest people. They have gone with the honor of the world and nobility of the hereafter. Ibn Abi Dunya verified this tradition, and it has a good chain of narrators. The benefits of remembrance of death, of remembering death, and the way to think about it. Do know that death is immense and terrifying, and what comes after it is even greater than it. There is a huge benefit in remembering it, for indeed it spoils the world and makes it loathsome to the heart. And loathing it is the head of every good deed. Just as loving it is surely the head of every sin. The first of them, the Gnostic, has benefits in remembering it. The Gnostic, Al-Arif, the knower of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has two benefits in remembering it, in remembering death. The first of them is aversion to the world. The other is longing for the afterlife, for indeed the lover inevitably yearns. The meaning of yearning in regards to sensory things is to fulfill the imagination through rising to direct witnessing. Indeed, the object of yearning is inevitably perceived in the imagination, yet absent from sight. The states of the afterlife and its luxuries, and the beauty of the divine presence are all perceived by the agnostic, who knows them as if he is looking through a thin curtain just before the sun rises, when the light is weak. He yearns for its fulfillment through manifestation and direct witnessing, and knows that this is not to be except at death. Hence, he does not dislike death, because he does not dislike meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no reason for the any of the creation to turn to the world except little reflection on death. The path to thinking about it requires that a person empties his heart of every thought beside it, sits in seclusion, and pursues remembering death earnestly in his heart. He should first reflect on his friends and peers that have passed, remembering them one by one, remembering their ambitions, their hopes, and their reliance upon status and wealth. Then he should remember their final moments at death and their sorrow over a lifetime lost and squandered. Then he should reflect on their bodies and how they disintegrate into dust, how they turn into corpses that the worms eat. Then he should turn to himself and know that he is like one among them. His hopes are like their hopes, and his final moment will be like their final moments. Then he should look at his body parts and how they grow weak, at his eye and how the worm will eat it, and at his tongue and how it tears and becomes a piece of dead flesh in his mouth. If you do this, the world is spoiled for you, it is spoiled to you, and you are happy. For the happy one is he who is admonished by the example of another. For this reason, Allah's Messenger said, this is not a hadith at all, just simply to some scholars said that it is a forged tradition, and they said that it's from the speech or from the talk of Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah. But the meaning is, the message there is, it's a strong message and written beautifully in Arabic, despite the fact that it's not a hadith. O people, we carry on as if death in the world were written for other than us, as if its reality were required of other than us, and as if those whom we have bid farewell unto death are travelers returning to us shortly. Like as if they are going on a vacation, just they are going to come back. We prepare their bodies for burial and consume what they bequeath as if we will live eternally after them. We have forgotten every admonition and feel secure from every calamity. Good news to he whose fault preoccupies him from the faults of the people. Vain hopes are the basis of heedlessness of death. The basis of heedlessness of death is vain hopes. And this is the essence of ignorance. This is why Allah's Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, when you wake up in the morning, do not talk to yourself about the evening. When you retire in the evening, do not talk to yourself about the morning. Let me just read the whole thing and then comment, and because one part is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and one part and it is really muttafaq alayhi. It's been narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. And the second part, it seems that it is really the Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu. He is the one who continued basically the narrative. But here it is mentioned as if the whole thing is the hadith of the Prophet. So I'll just read it and then decipher, So I'll just go to the beginning. So we read it as is first. So the Prophet, this is why Allah's Messenger said to Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, when you wake up in the morning, do not talk to yourself about the evening. When you retire in the evening, do not talk to yourself about the morning. Exploit your life for your death and your health for your sickness. For indeed, O Abdullah, you do not know what you will be called tomorrow. Okay, let's basically break it down. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in both Al-Bukhari and Muslim, so Abdullah bin Umar, so Ibn Umar said, رضي الله عنهما, أخذ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بمنكبي So the Prophet ﷺ, he took, basically he grabbed my my shoulder, my arm, and he said, be in this life كن في الدنيا كأنك غريب أو عابر سبيل. Be in this life as if you are a stranger or a traveler. The rest is Abdullah bin Umar continues as if he is explaining the hadith. I think this is very important to remember. وكان ابن عمر رضي الله عنه تعالى يقول إذا أصبحت فلا تنتظر المساء وإذا أمسيت فلا تنتظر الصباح وخذ من صحتك لمرضك وفي حياتك لموتك. So the hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is only the first part. In both so both of them, meaning that these traditions, both of them show that it is Ibn Umar who said, if you reach the evening, do not wait for the morning, and if you reach the morning, do not wait for the evening. Like, don't be that hopeful. And so the Prophet ﷺ then said, the most frightening thing I fear for my community is two traits: following desires and vain hopes. Usama radiallahu anh, rented a product for 2 months. I don't know why it says rented, because it says ishtara. So it's it is rent, but ishtara. And a product, really, it's a newly born camel for 100 dinars. It's 100, whether it's dinar or not. It could be dirhams. So the Prophet ﷺ commented on this by saying, are you not amazed at this Usama who rented something for 2 months? Indeed, Usama has a vain hope. By He in whose hand is my soul, I have not blinked my eyes without thinking that my eyelids would not meet until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had grasped my spirit. Nor have I raised my head without thinking that I would lower it and be grasped. Nor have I eaten a piece of food without thinking that I would swallow it and die from choking. Die from choking. Then he said, O children, I think I made a mistake, but I will correct it. Then he said, O children of Adam, if you use your reason, then prepare yourselves for death. by He in whose hand is my soul. What you are promised is certainly coming, and you cannot stop it. The walida is basically a slave woman. So the hadith has many parts that are intriguing. Yeah. Inshallah, I will definitely look at the hadith again and start with it tomorrow, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.